This is Ketef Hinnom, a rocky knoll in the heart of Jerusalem. It's situated on the south shoulder of the Hinnom Valley, opposite Mount Zion, overlooking the walls of the old city of Jerusalem and the famous Tower of David and Jaffa Gate. The site is beside the ancient road between Bethlehem and Jerusalem. It was an important road junction between the land of the ancient Hebrew tribes of Judah and Benjamin. Thanks to its location, everyone who came to Jerusalem and the city of David had to pass here. The location of Ketef Hinnom, high on a hill, is beautiful and strategic. But there's more to Ketef Hinnom than meets the eye. This rocky outcrop concealed hidden secrets. Ketef Hinnom is a place of treasure, buried treasure. Treasure that's been buried here for 2,700 years. This is the site of one of the most exciting and amazing archaeological discoveries in modern times, involving a hoard of treasure, including 2 silver scrolls that carried an ancient message that surprised the world. Join me as we unravel the mystery of the silver scrolls.
I was born in a time and place where nobody should be born. I'm a product of Second World War. I was born in the ghetto of Budapest, Hungary. Actually, nobody should be born there. In January of 1945, the Russian army entered the ghetto of Budapest, and since then, I'm a free person and I'm alive. I guess that between myself and death in the concentration camps, there is about a week or so. It was the end of the war. The Germans were in a total disorder already, and they forgot about us. I owe my life to the Red Army, to Joseph Stalin, out of all people. Many people owe him their death. I owe him my life.
Dr. Gabriel Barkay was born in the Budapest ghetto in Hungary right after the Nazis entered the country and immigrated to Israel with his family in 1950. He soon developed a keen interest in the history and archaeology of his new homeland.
I came to Jerusalem when I was 6, and I began wandering around my house. I collected all kinds of artifacts, coins and pottery, etc. And I wondered who were the people who left these behind. And I forced my father to buy me some books about archaeology, and that was only obvious. Then the next step would be studying archaeology after I left the military service.
And so, after his military service, he began studying archaeology and completed his doctorate summa cum laude at Tel Aviv University, and then participated in and conducted numerous excavations, mostly focused on Jerusalem. Today, he's considered by many to be the greatest expert on the archaeology of Jerusalem.
In the 1970s, I was looking for a subject for a doctoral thesis, and I found out that I'm interested in archaeology of Jerusalem, and the old city of Jerusalem and the ancient core at the city of David are very dense. There were thousands of articles written about them. There were dozens of people who were digging there. I didn't want to step upon nobody's toes, and I didn't want others to step on my toes. So I was looking for para-urban activities which took place next to a city. They were depending upon what happens in the city, but they are outside the city. and I tried to map all the extramural human activities which took place outside the city. I tried to put myself into the shoes of the ancient. Where would I put quarrying? Where would I put burial activities? Where I would put large public gatherings, etc. Those are activities that don't take place in the densely built-up city. So theoretically, I found out on the map that this would be an ideal place.
Gabriel Barkay, Gabi to his friends, had long been interested in Ketef Hinnom. He'd taken a survey and collected pieces of broken pottery here immediately below St Andrew's Scottish Church. And he found that the pottery shards dated back to the time of the Old Testament Israelite kings. This convinced him that this rocky knoll may well conceal some long-hidden secrets. In 1979, he decided that it was time to begin excavating the site. But he had a meagre budget and so could only afford a team of 12 and 13-year-old helpers from a local archaeology club. Not to be deterred, Barkay began to investigate the site in earnest with his small work crew of young students and volunteers. Well, excavation had been in progress only 3 days when a burial cave was uncovered. The ancient tomb had been cut into the limestone slope. Originally, it would have formed a rock cave, but over the centuries, the roof collapsed, leaving the cave floor exposed. Excitement grew as one by one other caves began to materialize. There were 9 in all. As Barkay inspected the burial caves, the design and architecture told his trained eye that they dated from the era of Solomon's temple, the First Temple period, the 8th to 6th centuries BC. Don't expect to find any treasure here, Barkay told his young crew. It's probably been looted centuries ago. But never mind. We're looking for understanding, for how people lived, for what happened. But if we do find treasures, blessed be.
This burial cave dates back to First Temple period. It is a 2,600 years old burial cave, which had a roof over it, which was quarried away, unfortunately. But if it would have been here, we would be in total darkness, and we would have to crawl on our bellies in order to enter. The cave itself is a multi-chambered burial cave. It has a large entry hall, and it is flanked on all sides by 5 burial chambers. The burial chambers, each of them was meant for another son of the founding father. This chamber has 3 benches upon which they stretched the bodies. The benches are equipped with scooped out headrests for the heads of the deceased, imitating some devices that they had in their beds. And down below, underneath the benches for stretching the bodies, we have the repository, which was for the secondary burial. The burial of the flesh took place upon the benches. The burial of the bones took place down below. So they collected the bones after the decay of the flesh in order to make room for the next generation upon the benches.
The burial caves clearly revealed the burial customs of the First Temple period, shedding light on an obscure text in the Bible, in Judges chapter 2 and verse 10. After that whole generation had been gathered to the fathers. The bones of the deceased were literally gathered and placed with those of their ancestors, the fathers, in the repository under the burial bench. Moving along the line of caves, Barkay noticed that this one was different from the rest. The care taken to carve and smooth its walls showed that this was the tomb of a wealthy Jerusalem family. Barkay had never seen anything like this before. He ran his fingers along the bench. Could this cave contain a special surprise? Barkay peered beneath the bench, looking for the repository where they buried the bones. When he looked inside, all he saw was what looked like an empty rock floor. Barkay was deeply disappointed.
Now, the repository of chamber number 25 in cave number 24 was found in the season of 1979. And when I first crawled into the repository, I realized that, unfortunately, it is looted, as were all the other caves we excavated before. And at least we had some well-preserved architectural features. I saw a kind of a floor there, rocky floor, which hinted that somebody was there before me. I had a small crew of students. Among those kids, there was a small boy, little Nathan, who made me nervous all the time. He had an ugly habit of always pulling my shirt from behind. When I would turn around, he would ask me silly questions. I couldn't bear the sight of this boy anymore. And so it happened that he made one of the most important discoveries in my life.
Barkay needed to have all the accumulated dirt and stones cleaned out of the repository, and he had the perfect person to do the clean out.
I took that kid, little Nathan, and I thought, well, for a while I'm not going to see him. I gave him the job of cleaning up that place for photography.
So Barkay told Nathan that the repository had to be as clean as his mother's kitchen, even if he had to lick it clean. It had to be spotless for the photograph. To Barkay's surprise, Nathan cleans out the repository meticulously. But then Nathan gets bored. He has a hammer in his hand, usually a bad combination. In his boredom, Nathan starts banging his hammer on the repository rock floor. And this is where truth becomes stranger than fiction. The floor cracks, opens up, and reveals an ancient treasure trove.
After a while, I was far away from here. I feel my shirt being pulled from behind, and suddenly when I turned around, I saw him holding two jugs, pottery jugs, intact. They were from First Temple period. That was against all instructions. He had to call over one of the archaeologists and not run around with his discovery. I was ready to suffocate him on the spot. It was against all possible instructions. In any case, he didn't come up with any explanation where from he had those jugs. I went back with him, and then I realized what happened.
Apparently, a layer of rock from the cave ceiling had collapsed and covered the repository floor. Nathan's hammering had broken it up and revealed the hidden treasure below. Leave it to a 13-year-old troublemaker to make one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time, a secret room filled with ancient treasure. But this now required professional attention immediately. So Nathan and his friends were sent home and replaced by a team of university archaeology students. They were sworn to secrecy. They weren't even allowed to tell their parents, spouses, or friends. If word got around Jerusalem that there was a cave full of treasure here, it would attract modern-day tomb robbers and create a security nightmare. Electricity was connected from the nearby St. Andrew's Church. The team worked 24 hours around the clock. Carefully, stone by stone, they removed the rubble. As the last stone was removed, light flashed into the complete repository for the first time in almost 1 million days. Its ancient treasure lay untouched. It had escaped the greedy hands of grave robbers over the millennia. Gabriel Barkay peered into the semi-darkness of this ancient burial cave. What he saw caused his heart to race with excitement. He had entered a long-lost world, never intended to be seen by human eyes. Surrounding him were dozens of grinning skeletons, the remains of 95 ancient Israelites, dead for thousands of years. And there was treasure, fabulous treasure. In the flickering light thrown by the single light bulb, he and his team saw a stunning array of burial gifts. Over 1,000 precious objects. There was silver jewelry, coins, precious stones, oil lamps, jars and decanters, vessels of alabaster and ivory artifacts. The excavation also uncovered an inscribed seal with the word Palta, which is a shortened version of Palat Yahu, a common name found in the city of David at that time. Evidently, this cave belonged to a wealthy family with that name, and at least 95 members were buried here over several generations. Amid the excitement, one of the students' attention was attracted by a small object on the floor of the cave near where she was kneeling. She called Barkay's attention to the grey-purple item on the floor. It looked like a cigarette butt. It was the colour of corroded silver. Examining the small object, Barkay recognised it as an amulet, a strip of silver rolled up into a tiny scroll with a hole in its centre through which string could be threaded. Barkay suggested that it was a pendant, probably worn around the neck by one of these Israelites buried here in the cave. Later, as they sieved the soil accumulated on the floor over the centuries, another amulet, a second still smaller silver scroll, was found in the cave. The larger scroll was about 2 centimetres in length and 1 centimetre in diameter. The second scroll was about half the size. This is the first and only intact burial repository of the First Temple period, 8th to 6th century BC, ever found in Jerusalem. Of some 1,000 items found in the tomb, the silver scrolls were of special interest to Barkay. He was convinced that there must be writing on them. He was sure of it. But the scrolls were too brittle to unroll. For 2.5 years, Barkay tried to find some way of unrolling the silver scrolls. They were sent to experts at the University of Leeds in Britain. They are some of the most experienced restorers of ancient artefacts and metal experts available for such delicate work. The British experts felt, however, that the danger of destroying the scrolls was too great. They refused to risk working on the scrolls and returned them. The scrolls were then sent to Germany. The German laboratory similarly declined and sent the scrolls back to Israel. Nobody was prepared to touch them. They were just too delicate and fragile. The danger of harming them was too great.
There was no previous experience in opening or unrolling such objects. And the natural way of dealing with it, it was found out to be made of silver, and we tried to heat up the silver in order to soften it and to unroll it. And that was found to be destructive, and actually we lost some parts in this way.
For 3 years, the contents of the scrolls remained a secret. Barkay was frustrated. He feared the scrolls would keep their secrets forever. Finally, the scrolls were sent to the Israel Museum laboratories. Joseph Dodo Shenaf was given the responsibility of devising some means to unravel them. The responsibility was enormous. Shenaf considered every possibility. Finally, he came up with a new and innovative solution. He soaked the larger scroll in an acid solution to remove thousands of years of corrosion. Then the outer layer was carefully smeared with an acrylic emulsion to give it strength. When it dried, it was transparent and elastic. Shenaf then carefully unrolled the first layer. Layer by layer, he repeated the process, millimetre by millimetre, over a period of months, both scrolls were carefully unrolled. The larger of the scrolls was about 2 centimeters wide and about 10 centimeters in length. It was made of pure silver. Eagerly, Barkay placed the larger scroll under a microscope. "It's covered with writing," he cried excitedly as he squinted through the eyepiece where he saw the faint etchings of ancient Hebrew letters. Now, the challenge was to decipher the writing. And even if he could decipher the characters inscribed on the ancient scrolls, could they have any meaning today?
I could identify the first word which I deciphered immediately on the spot. That was Yud Hey Vav Hey, which is anglicized as Jehovah, or the private name of God. Wherever the word the Lord appears in the English Bible, this is what we have in the Hebrew original.
But it wasn't enough to decipher the full message and unlock the mystery of the silver scrolls. However, now he was more determined than ever to find out what was inscribed on the scrolls. He just had to discover their message. Years passed, and then in 1988, the scrolls, along with the other treasures found at Ketef Hinnom, were turned over to the Israel Museum in preparation for an exhibit to be held some months later. Ada Yardini, an expert in the ancient script, noticed something on the scrolls that Barkay and others had missed. As she closely examined the scrolls, she discovered God's name written a third time on both scrolls in 3 consecutive lines. Armed with this new information, she sought the help of a friend, a devout Jew. He knew the Hebrew scriptures virtually by heart. "Do you know the Priestly Benediction?" he asked. "It's the only place in the scriptures where God's name appears 3 times like that." This was the clue that unlocked the mystery of the silver scrolls. Yardini soon deciphered the rest of the words. Inscribed on the scrolls, practically word for word, was the Priestly Benediction found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 to 26. They are the words that Moses brought from God and gave to Aaron and his sons to bless the people. The high priest prayed this benediction, this blessing, over the children of Israel every day. "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace."
That blessing is, first of all, beautiful. The language is so beautiful, the Hebrew. It is lost in most of the translations. It starts with the blessing of God and it ends with the word shalom. Shalom meaning perfection, meaning harmony between all components of creation. Today, for us, shalom is peace, but it is much more than that, the significance of that word. In any case, that is the ultimate peak of the aspirations of every believer. It is still in use in Jewish prayer, in Christian prayer, and on the high holidays, it is read in an enormous public next to the wall of the temple here in Jerusalem. It is used also in public ceremonies such as the inauguration of American presidents. The priestly benediction is said by Jewish fathers to their sons and daughters on the eve of the Sabbath, as they come home from welcoming the Sabbath. These are actually the first Hebrew words which I remember from my early childhood, the words with which my late father blessed me with. This is a kind of a closing of a circle for me. The text is a beautiful text, and it is also personally of importance to me.
The silver scrolls contain the oldest biblical inscription ever found. When the ancient scribe etched those words some 2,700 years ago, the prophet Jeremiah was still alive, Solomon's temple still stood, and the heirs of King David sat on the throne. The Dead Sea Scrolls would not be written for another 400 years. Now, when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947, they were the oldest Hebrew biblical inscriptions ever found. They were 1,000 years older than any other manuscripts in existence. Now, the Silver Scrolls are 400 years older. And here's what's amazing. Although written about 2,700 years ago, the words are virtually identical with those found in our Bibles. It's a staggering fact that in the course of over 2.5 millennia of copying by hand, no errors have crept into that text. This suggests a remarkable accuracy in the transmission of the Bible across the centuries and through the millennia. The discovery of the Silver Scrolls is a timely reminder that we can trust the accuracy of the Bible as we have it today. Perhaps the Silver Scrolls bring a special message from the distant past to us all. You see, this priestly benediction is the only prayer written by God Himself for His people. Yes, this prayer, etched on the Silver Scrolls, is the only prayer that was dictated by God to bless His people. And that includes you. This is God's prayer for you. In fact, in this blessing, God refers to you 6 times. And His blessing covers every aspect of your life. He knows exactly what you need. He desires to shower you with the following: the Lord bless you, goodness and prosperity, and keep you, safekeeping and protection. The Lord make His face shine on you, a lighted way, and be gracious to you, His unmerited favor. The Lord turn His face to you, love and affection, and give you peace, peaceful living, inner peace and happiness. An ancient blessing, God's prayer for you, that demonstrates His desire to bless you with prosperity, safekeeping, a lighted way, unmerited favor, affection, inner peace and happiness. These are God's most basic desires for you. How good's that? The message etched on the Silver Scrolls and now etched on our hearts. A message thousands of years old and still perfectly modern and relevant. If you would like to find out more about the fascinating discoveries from the past that prove the accuracy of the Bible, then I'd like to recommend the free gift we have for all our Incredible Journey viewers today. It's the booklet, The Silver Scrolls and Other Amazing Discoveries. This booklet is our gift to you and is absolutely free. I guarantee there are no costs or obligations whatsoever. So make the most of this wonderful opportunity to receive the gift we have for you today.
Phone or text 0436 333 555 in Australia or 020 422 2042 in New Zealand. Or visit our website tij.tv or simply scan the QR code on your screen and we'll send you today's free offer totally free of charge and with no obligation. Write to us at GPO Box 274, Sydney, New South Wales 2001, Australia, or PO Box 76673, Manukau, Auckland 2241, New Zealand. Don't delay, call or text us now.
If you've enjoyed today's journey to Jerusalem and our reflections on the message of the Silver Scrolls, the Priestly Benediction, then be sure to join us again next week when we will share another of life's journeys together. Until then, let's pray the Priestly Benediction given by God to bless His people. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen.